Good afternoon, everybody. So whenever you're ready, let me know.
Okay, level 11, we're up at a peak of, but, have a record, but.
That's all set? All right, 5 days ago, Anthony Diaz, 39 years old, was senselessly and brutally shot and killed in the city of Albany and the area of Central and Quail Street. A day later, within a day, our officers had identified the suspect in this homicide, had located the vehicle down in Brooklyn, New York, and within a day had seized the vehicle, seized a weapon inside of that vehicle, a weapon that we're now ballistically testing to find out if it was in fact used in the homicide. And within 5 days, we had put enough pressure on the individual who committed this homicide, where he turned himself in to the Albany Police Department this morning. And charged with second-degree murder is Cordell Young, 37 years old. He's been remanded. And this was just a remarkable piece of police work by our officers in the Albany Police Department, as well as the staff from the Capital Region Crime Analysis Center. They worked very closely together to develop the data and to pull together resources and technology in order to identify this person and have this person taken into custody within 5 days. We're holding this press conference because it's important for our community to know that when these senseless acts of violence are occurring in our community, we have detectives and officers who are working very closely with our partners at the local, state, and federal levels to identify who these individuals are and bring them to justice. We cannot prevent every senseless act of violence, but what we can do is make sure that we're holding these individuals accountable, that we're bringing these individuals to the justice system and bringing closure to the victim, to the families of these victims. And as an example, over the last 2 years, we have an 84% clearance rate for homicides in the city. National average is hovering somewhere around 50%. So we're well above what we're seeing nationally in terms of holding these individuals accountable. We're going to continue to do this. Again, I give all the credit to these officers in the Albany Police Department, to the staff in the Capital Region Crime Analysis Center, and this is a message that we're sending to individuals in our community who are not resolving these conflicts diplomatically, peacefully. We're seeing this consistently. And this incident that we had 5 days ago was symbolic of what we've been seeing over the last 3 or 4 years. Minor conflicts, conflicts that should be handled diplomatically, conflicts that should be handled in a peaceful way, conflicts that should never escalate to a situation where a person dies. We're seeing these conflicts consistently rise to that point. And then when you add in this proliferation of handguns and firearms that we've seen in our communities across this country, it's a combustible mix. And so firearms themselves are not the problem. Handguns are not the problem in and of itself. What we have is this proliferation of these guns and individuals who are using these guns and these weapons in order to resolve these minor conflicts. We're sending a message that that is not acceptable in our city. If it happens, then we're going to find out who these individuals are. We're going to bring these individuals to justice. So great job by our officers and by the members of the Capital Region Crime Analysis Center. And now I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chief, and I want to thank you for your leadership. Cities across this country saw a rise in gun violence around the time of the pandemic and the shutdown. And a lot of communities are still struggling to determine how they're going to respond to that gun violence. this police department, under the leadership of Chief Hawkins, got about the business of ensuring that they had the tools and resources in place to catch people who engaged in this violent behavior and bring them to justice. And I want to commend the detectives who worked on this, but I also want to use this as an opportunity to thank Governor Hochul, who visited this crime analysis center, who supported it and has supported it financially and in the state budget. The resources that are being provided and proposed in the current state budget really demonstrate her commitment to ensuring that we have the tools that we need to fight violent crime, and particularly gun violence in our city. And I believe that the swift action that has happened with respect to this case, as well as a number of other cases over these last 2 years, demonstrate that we are working together. We are leaving no stone unturned. We have a detective's office, and our officers are laser focused. For them, when any act of violence like this happens in this community, they recognize it's unacceptable, it's not who we are, it's not what this community wants, and they work swiftly with all resources available to ensure that we are doing everything that we can to bring dangerous people with guns into custody. And that is what happened in this incident, and it happened because of the investment that the state made in the Crime Analysis Center here, because of the hard work and the strong working relationships that exist, and also because of the tremendous hard work of our detectives. The detectives of this police department are laser focused and committed, and every time we have an act of gun violence, it's an act of violence, one act of violence too many, but they treat every shots fired, they treat every one of these incidents as a homicide, because we know that if somebody's willing to shoot a gun, even when there is no victim, so to speak, there's no property damage, nobody injured, that is a person who has demonstrated a willingness to act in a way that makes our community unsafe. And so the message is clear. We have resources where we need them, we see what we need to see, and we have the resources available in both our detective's office, in this police department, and with our state and federal partners to be able to move swiftly and to do all that we can to bring people to justice. And I want to commend the chief for his leadership. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because the chief is pulling together and has pulled together with his command staff these resources, and it happens because of leadership like Governor Hochul's, who is also laser focused on ensuring that we are bringing people who are engaging in this activity to justice, and that we are sending a message across New York State that gun violence here will be treated swiftly, and that it is not acceptable, and that our communities deserve to be safe. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take any questions that you may have.
So, just a quick question. So the shooting, was it because of a minor conflict? And if so, can you describe what that conflict was about?
Yeah, these two individuals knew each other, and I'm not at liberty to say exactly what we theorize at this point, but we do know that there was some dispute between these individuals that escalated out of control. And again, we're consistently seeing this with a lot of our acts of violence that we see in our city. You know, most of our acts of violence aren't these individuals, you know, these gangbangers doing these types of things. What we're seeing are individuals who have problems, who have disputes, grievances amongst each other. And these disputes and grievances just escalate to a point where one or both of the individuals or people who are involved decide to use weapons in order to resolve it. It's completely unacceptable, and that's what we saw in this incident.
Can you provide an example to such dispute?
Well, I tell you, we've had in the past a dispute over a cell phone. We've had a homicide where someone felt that they were being videoed by another person, and a dispute occurred and it escalated to a shooting and a homicide. We're consistently seeing those types of things. And so our message is individuals who are involved in this have to resolve these grievances and these disputes in a more peaceful way. We cannot allow these minor grievances to escalate out of control until it results into a shooting, stabbing, and maybe even a loss of life.
Now, this was the first homicide of the year, but what was the difference in this homicide that allowed you guys to solve it so quickly?
Like the mayor said, I think one big piece of it is this investment that the governor has made in the city of Albany and in the Albany Police Department that allowed us to have some additional resources. And our detectives seized that opportunity to use those resources. And so our detectives work very, very closely with the staff in our Capital Region Crime Analysis Center. And because of these additional resources, they were able to quickly develop and obtain some data and some other surveillance and technological types of things that led them to this individual down in Brooklyn, New York, within 24 hours. And within that 24-hour period, we had a vehicle seized, a handgun, and we knew who the person involved was. It took a few days later to actually get that person to turn himself in. But because of that investment and the partnerships that it fostered, it allowed us to, like the mayor said, swiftly, quickly, effectively bring this person into custody and start the closure process for the victims' families.
So did the suspect, did he have a history of violence?
I don't know the suspect's criminal history at this point. I just don't have that information.
The history of the gun itself, what do we know about that? What kind of weapon was it? Was it a gun? What kind of information can you tell us?
Yeah, it was a handgun, and preliminarily it matched the ballistics or the caliber of weapon that was used in the homicide, but we still have not gotten the ballistic results yet to confirm that.
What about the ownership of the weapon? Is it legally owned? Was it
From what I understand, the weapon was legally owned.
Okay.
By the person you arrested?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this happened in broad daylight. What can you say to people that are concerned about a shooting happening at 3:15 in the middle of the day?
Well, it's scary. I mean, we've got children around, we've got just other people that are around, and that's why it shook a lot of people, and it really touched our officers. And so the message to anybody, and the message to our community is that when these things happen, these heinous acts of violence, no police department, no law enforcement agency across the country can prevent every single heinous act of violence that some demented person decides to just spontaneously pull off. But what we can do is work with our community to try to mitigate the chances of these things happening, and we do. We've got a lot of connections within our community. We've got a very, very good community policing and community relations program that allows us to, our people in our community to be very comfortable with us reporting things. And by the way, in a lot of these acts of violence that we've had, because of that relationship, we've gotten a lot of tips from individuals in the community. In this case, we received some also that may, as this case unfolds in the court system, may be of some value to us. So we've got that piece, that message I want to send out. We've got some very good relationships. But the second piece, and the second message I want to send out is that when these things happen, we're going to devote every single resource that we have to make sure that we bring these individuals to justice, so that we bring closure, to start the closure process for the families, but it also serves as a deterrent, I believe. If individuals know that they do these sorts of heinous acts any time of the day in our city, that there's a high probability that they are going to get caught, then I think that serves as a deterrent, so we want to send that message as well.
I do also want to address, we often have people ask, what can the community do? And knowing what we know about many of these homicides, it is, if you see something, say something. Oftentimes, these disputes are happening on social media with other people who are watching or have the ability to see these types of disputes escalate. And it is important. Don't underestimate the power that you have as a friend of these individuals, as somebody who loves an individual who might be getting involved in a heated dispute, to try to reduce the temperature, right? To try to release some of that steam that is building. Because, again, when you think about the tragedy of this, I think about the impact of children walking home from school, of the children who are involved in a very, very It's an amazing after-school program that happens at the boxing gym, where young people build confidence and they get help with homework and they have opportunities to really see themselves and gain confidence in themselves. When I think about the impact on them of either seeing or knowing that they were this close to an act of violence, that causes a fissure in the community. And that's something that we have to make sure that we're responding to. And those rec aides at the boxing gym, engaging with those children, saying what it is. It's trauma. They've experienced trauma. And then that's the outer ring. And as you get closer and closer to the victim of the homicide and the perpetrator of this homicide, these are lives completely disrupted. The individual who committed this act will likely spend most of, if not the rest of his life, in prison. And, that is the type of impact that I hope people give pause to. And if they care about someone, find ways to de-escalate these situations. We talk about our police and police de-escalation all the time. But the community has a tremendous opportunity to also talk about de-escalation. How do we de-escalate these scenarios before they reach the point that somebody is picking up a gun in the middle of the afternoon? And again, this wasn't somebody who was shooting randomly. Thank God, right? This was somebody who was targeting an individual with whom he had a dispute. But the impact of that still is one that will take years in some cases for people to heal. So we do have the power as a community to come together and talk about how do we de-escalate? How do we help in these situations? Because the police can't be everywhere. They can't. But there are people who have insight into this, who see it, and we want to empower them to help to de-escalate those situations.
And did the cameras on the boxing gym capture any of this, and will that be released to the public or to the media?
I mean, the chief can talk to that, but I do want to send a message. When we started to see a significant increase in violence in the city of Albany, one of the things that we heard from every community was we want more cameras. So I want to make sure that everyone knows we heard, we listened, we acted. So we have deployed cameras throughout the city. We will continue to deploy cameras. They are a tool and a resource that we have. We are also able to tap into other people's cameras. So Ring doorbells have helped solve crimes. We've had lots and lots of cooperation from people who have cameras and video. And so that's an important thing for people to know, particularly those who may be thinking about engaging in this type of violent behavior. We have listened to our community. Our community has demanded and said that they feel safer when we have access to cameras, and we do.
One more question. Just to answer a question, between the cameras at the boxing gym and the city cameras, I haven't seen them, but from what I understand, a significant portion, if not all, of this incident was captured on video. And it's all part of the case file at this point, so I don't know when that will be released at this point. Time for one more.
And I know the Crime Analysis Center was first established in 2009. So what's been, I guess, what's been the newest tools, I guess, the most effective tools now that's been making a difference?
Pretty much the same tools that we had back when it started in 2009. We just had more of them, and we had more people. And because back then there were just a few agencies who were involved, and now we have several local law enforcement agencies. We have officers at the state level, and we even have some federal level officers who are in there as well. And we're communicating. They're sitting. They're sharing information. So the expansion has served as a force multiplier for us, and it's allowed us to really do more than we were able to do years and years ago.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.